To tackle the nation's chronic population concerns, economics professor Yoon has been tapped to serve as the inaugural senior presidential secretary on the low birth rate. Korea's economy retreated by 0.2% from April to June when compared to the previous quarter due to lackluster consumer spending and investment. The contentious bill over launching a special probe into the death of a Marine that's been turned down by the president was scrapped for the second time at today's parliamentary plenary session. Lawmakers are also clashing over revising broadcasting laws. It's July 25th, 6 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. We start with the nation working to address its chronically low birth rate. Earlier, President Yoon declared the nation's population situation and low birth rate an emergency. Now he announced an economics professor who's also a working mom as his closest aide to advise him. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon with the latest.
A mother of twin boys is now set to aid President Yoon with one of the declared national emergencies, the low birth rate. On Thursday, the top office announced that Professor Yoo Hae-mi of Hanyang University's College of Economics and Finance has been chosen for this brand new senior secretary position that President Yoon created to tackle the current demographics crisis.
Yoo Hae-mi has been deeply studying the low birth rate issue in our country, focusing on how marriage and working spouses affect wages, how improving education and changes in the labor market impact economic growth, and how dual-income families divide childcare time.
The changes in population structure significantly impact economic growth, finance, employment, childcare, and welfare. Therefore, we will actively work on communication and preparation with various government departments. By assisting the president, we will do our utmost to help South Korea overcome the national population emergency and leap toward a hopeful future.
The new senior secretary is in her 40s with her boys still in elementary school. Important factors that the top office considered when filling in this new role. A working mother who's still involved in raising her children to relate best with other working moms in the nation.
With the expertise and experience accumulated over the years, along with a fresh perspective, as a senior secretary in their 40s, we expect to develop more fundamental and groundbreaking solutions to overcome the low birth rate problem.
Yoo is now set to advise President Yoon with creating a new powerful ministry to respond to the low birth rate. President Yoon announced this earlier this year, saying that the minister will be the Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs, something the current Education Minister serves as. In the meantime, there will be two secretaries under the new senior secretary, one for population coordination and one for tackling the low birth rate. Both positions were filled by Korea public officials to assist the new senior secretary. In the meantime, the new senior secretary also said while new policies will be carried out to raise the birth rate, a significant decline in the working population is inevitable. Another task Yoo considers major. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
As we settle into the second half of the year, the government published its annual tax code revision this afternoon. One of the focuses was on addressing structural risks like the low birth rate, as we just heard. Our finance correspondent Moon Hae-ryun joins me in the studio. Hae-ryun, tell us more about this risk and how tax code is being changed in response.
Well, Changmin, one of the fundamental issues the country is currently facing is its low birth rate. Last year, the fertility rate, which indicates the average number of children a woman will have in her lifetime, fell to 0.72, prompting the government to declare it as a state of emergency. Here is what the first Vice Minister of Economy and Finance said in a briefing today.
We must actively respond to structural risks, such as the population crisis and the decline of the country's potential growth rate in order for our economy to thrive.
A new addition to the tax code reflects the government's goal to increase support for newlyweds and parents. For newlyweds who register their marriage between 2024 and 2026, each person will be given a tax credit of 500,000 Korean won, or roughly $362, meaning that a couple can save 1 million won on taxes together. A tax credit is an amount of money that taxpayers can subtract directly from the taxes they owe. In response to doubts on how effective providing tax credits could be for married couples in boosting the birth rate, one expert said this.
I think a better move would be to concentrate tax exemptions on people who have children, and then raise the tax exemption from raise the per child tax exemption to a higher level, rather than just give tax exemption to every young couple indiscriminately.
And this is exactly what the government plans to do. The child tax credit already in place will be raised by 100,000 Korean won, meaning that it will now amount to 250,000 won for one child aged 8 or older, 300,000 for 2 children, and 400,000 for 3 children.
Yes, Hye-yeon, and other than married couples and parents, what other groups are the authorities focusing on?
Right, so another big revision is to the inheritance tax code that's been in place for nearly a quarter of a century. It currently ranges between 10 to 50% on taxable income, which is among the highest among members of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, second only to Japan. The OECD average stands at 15%, and an expert explains why high inheritance tax rates can cause issues.
For example, small and medium-sized companies, which are family-owned, some of them had to go out of business because they could not find other managers or owners who will take over the business. And when their parents wanted to leave the businesses to their children, they found that they could not afford to because of the high inheritance tax.
So in order to help SMEs, the government is proposing to lower the highest inheritance tax rate to 40% and the minimum tax base be raised to 200 million Korean won from the current 100 million. It also aims to abolish the premium that's placed on majority stakeholders that inherit stocks of family-owned conglomerates. Currently, this stands at 20%, meaning that South Korea's inheritance tax rate can reach up to 60%. At the start of the year, President Yoon identified this as a key factor behind the so-called Korea discount, which refers to a phenomenon in which the value of companies listed on the Korean stock market is lower than that of other major countries. This is because it creates an incentive for the current owners of the company to try and maintain low stock prices, so that if those stocks are passed to their children, the inheritance tax will be lower.
There's quite a change. And so what's the road ahead for the tax reform bill?
Absolutely. So there's still some way to go before these revisions are actually enacted. The bill will be submitted to the Nat'l Assembly in September, and these revisions could take effect starting next year. The revisions are expected to bring about a decrease in tax revenue of about 4.4 trillion won, or over $3 billion over the next 5 years. South Korea suffered from a tax revenue shock with slumps in the property market and corporate activity last year, but conditions are expected to improve with stronger exports and policies to promote investment and consumption.
Right, Hye-yeon, thank you for the wrap-up.
Thank you for having me.
In the meantime, Korea's economy shrank by 0.2% on quarter from April to June, weighed down by lackluster consumer spending and construction investment. Park Go-nu has this report.
South Korea's real gross domestic product fell in the second quarter of 2024, dropping by 0.2% from the previous quarter. That's according to advanced estimates released by the Bank of Korea on Thursday. It's the biggest fall in on-quarter growth since a 0.5% drop in real GDP in the fourth quarter of 2022. The BOK says the fall in GDP in the second quarter of this year is due to the base effect, due to a strong first quarter, as well as a lower level of private consumption and construction investment. It also said annual growth will still reach its earlier targets when considering the overall growth rate for the first half of the year.
It's hard to say the economy got worse just because it grew a lot in the first quarter and then shrank in the second quarter. The economy grew 2.8% in the first half of the year, and if the latter half grows by 2.2% as predicted, that leads to an annual growth rate calculation of 2.5%. The economic growth is in line with the annual growth target set earlier.
The BOK also spoke about other factors behind the fall in real GDP in the second quarter. Private consumption dropped by 0.2% on quarter as spending on goods, including motor vehicles and clothing, declined. Construction investment also contracted by 1.1%, while exports saw a rise of 0.9% on quarter, mainly due to car and chemical product exports. There was also a 1.2% rise in imports. The central bank said domestic demand will be able to recover in the near future as they forecast exports to keep increasing and high costs to possibly stabilize. Park Go-nu, Arirang News.
SK Hynix has shared promising second quarter profits given its edge over the global competition in the advanced memory chips, crucial for AI computing. Yoon has the details.
On Thursday, the world's second-largest memory chip maker, SK Hynix, reported its highest quarterly profit in 6 years on the back of sales of its premium memory chips in a market where demand for AI computing technology continues to rise. In the April to June period, the company posted an operating profit of 5.46 trillion won, or around $3.95 billion. This is the largest quarterly operating profit for the company since the third quarter of 2018, a time that was dubbed a period of prosperity for chip manufacturers when it reported $4.67 billion. Compared with the company's loss of around $2 billion a year earlier, its revenue surged 124.8% to a record $11.84 billion. SK Hynix said the rise in overall prices of DRAM and NAND products, along with strong demand for AI memories including HBM or high bandwidth memory, is what led to a 32% increase in revenue compared to the previous quarter, adding that favorable exchange rates also factored into the second quarter. According to SK Hynix, demand for AI server memories is expected to continue to rise in the second half of the year, which means sales of high-performance memory products will continue to increase. SK Hynix is a key HBM supplier to the US AI chip giant NVIDIA, a major player in the AI semiconductor market with its graphics processing units. Going forward, the company plans to further develop its memory chip technology to maintain its competitive advantage. Yoon, Arirang News.
The National Assembly today voted down an opposition-led bill for a special investigation into the death of a Marine, which had been vetoed by President Yoon once again and sent back to the Parliament for a revote. Our National Assembly correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
The National Assembly on Thursday rejected a special probe into the death of a Marine during last year's flood rescue operations. Out of 299 votes cast, 194 were in favor, 104 were against, and one lawmaker abstained. But to pass a bill vetoed by the president, 2/3 or more of the lawmakers present must approve it, along with the majority attendance. This bill fell short by 6 votes. The proposed bill calls for a special probe into allegations that the presidential office and the defense ministry inappropriately interfered in the investigation of the Marine's death. The president had vetoed an earlier version of the special probe bill passed by the previous 21st Assembly in May. Although it was sent back to the Parliament that same month, it failed to meet the required threshold for its second approval. Meanwhile, the main opposition Democratic Party is on Thursday planning to table broadcasting law revision bills. 3 bills aimed at reducing state influence over public broadcasters were passed by the opposition-controlled National Assembly last year but were vetoed by President Yoon. These include amendments to the Broadcasting Act, the Foundation for Broadcast Culture Act, and the Korea Educational Broadcasting System. The DP is pushing the bills again this time with a revision to the Act on the establishment of the Korea Communications Commission, which requires 4 members instead of the current 2 to pass a resolution. However, the ruling People Power Party argues that the bills would increase the presence of progressive figures on the Public Broadcaster Board. The party plans to launch a filibuster in protest when the bills are tabled in the plenary session. Under the National Assembly Act, a filibuster on each bill can be halted after 24 hours if at least 3/5 of the parliament agree to do so. This means that with the filibuster taking place, the plenary session could last at least 4 days to address the 4 bills. 신하영, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., President Biden addressed the nation for the first time since he dropped out of the race, saying his decision was the best way to unite the nation. Republican candidate Donald Trump was quick to turn his focus to his new opponent. Cha Yoon has more.
U.S. President Joe Biden gave an address from behind the Resolute desk in the White House's Oval Office, outlining his decision to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Biden said he believed his record and leadership as president were enough to be reelected. However, he explained that he had made the decision to bring forth a new and younger voice to defend democracy in the U.S.
So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
President Biden did not directly accuse former President Donald Trump during the address. Nevertheless, he reiterated that democracy in the U.S. depended on American voters. Biden endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, saying that he decided to pass the torch to her, as she is an experienced, tough, and capable candidate. He also mentioned that he will focus on his job as president over his remaining 6 months in office, pledging to push for Supreme Court reform and respond to the climate change crisis. In response to this, former President Trump blasted his new opponent in his first rally since Biden's departure, calling Harris an ultra-liberal driving force and a lunatic.
If Kamala Harris gets in, she would be the most radical far-left extremist ever to occupy the White House times 10. There's never been a lunatic like this in the White House, and we've had some bad ones.
It seems that U.S. voters have rallied on both sides as the presidential race continues. According to public opinion polls conducted by CNN, after the candidacy withdrawal by President Biden, the gap between support for Trump and Harris has decreased more than that for Trump and Biden, showing that 49% of those polled supported Trump and 46% supported Harris. Cha Yoon, Arirang News.
North Korea is presumed to have sent hundreds more balloons in its latest round of deliveries to the south. The Joint Chiefs of Staff said Thursday that the North sent some 500 balloons carrying scraps of paper and plastic the day before. 480 of them fell on South Korean territory, one of which landed in the presidential compound. The military said it would continue collecting the balloons after they fall and refrain from shooting them down in midair to prevent their contents from spreading and causing further damage. South Korea has resumed full-scale propaganda loudspeaker broadcasts along the entire border in response to the North's continued balloon provocations. Payment delays at 2 popular e-commerce platforms in the country are causing chaos for both sellers and customers. Some refunds have been made to customers as the company plans to speed up that process first. An Song-jin has the latest.
Hundreds of enraged customers gathered in front of an e-commerce platform company's headquarters on Thursday demanding refunds. This comes as delays in payments to sellers by 2 e-commerce platforms led to unilateral cancellations of orders. Tmon and WeMakePrice are e-commerce retailers in South Korea, but are subsidiaries of the Singapore-based platform Qoo10. The platforms have failed to pay sellers for their earnings since May after the mother company was reportedly in a tight monetary situation due to aggressive merger deals. The co-chief executive of both platforms on Thursday apologized and said that they will secure enough funds for customer refunds. It also added that its mother company Qoo10 is working to provide the unpaid funds to its sellers. The company has so far completed at least 700 refunds and is expected to speed up the process. These liquidity woes have particularly affected sellers of digital gadgets and travel agencies as the holiday season has drawn closer. Moreover, the majority of the enlisted sellers on the platform are small and medium-sized enterprises, which further raises concerns about financial difficulties.
We will conduct an on-site inspection of the companies and see if they're properly providing refunds to the customers who have canceled their orders. We also plan to establish a response team at the Korea Consumer Agency to begin preparations for collective dispute mediation.
Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok on Thursday also instructed relevant agencies such as the Fair Trade Commission and the Financial Supervisory Service to closely examine the situation and asked to ensure that further damage to customers and sellers is prevented. An Song-jin, Arirang News.
The opening ceremony of the 2024 Summer Olympics kicks off on Friday over in Paris. Among the games scheduled for Saturday is that of badminton, for which Korea now has a tough and experienced team to contend against. Choi Soo-hyung has more.
Since the 1992 Barcelona Olympics, South Korea has been one of the dominant countries in badminton, winning a total of 19 medals, including 6 golds. However, in the 2010s, many star players retired at the same time, leaving behind relatively young athletes. As a result, the Korean badminton team won just 1 bronze medal each during 3 consecutive Olympics. However, thanks to the newly replaced generation, a new golden era has come for the team. At last year's Hangzhou Asian Games, the team won a total of 7 medals, signaling a resurgence. The gold medalist in women's singles at the Hangzhou Games and current world number 1, An Se-young, is the top contender for a title in Paris. This year, she has won 3 out of 7 open matches. Her biggest rival is China's Chen Yufei. An is determined to show her best performance on the Olympic stage.
Preparing for the Olympics has been incredibly challenging. Given the immense support and attention I received, I realized the only way to give back is through my performance. So I focused solely on overcoming my injury and perfecting my badminton skills.
In women's doubles, Lee So-hee and Baek Hana are also strong gold medal contenders. They won the prestigious All England Open Badminton Championships for 2 consecutive years and also clinched the Asian Championships this year. In mixed doubles, Seo Seung-jae and Choi Yu-jung are aiming for Olympic gold. They won the World Championship last year, and both being left-handed, they believe their powerful smashes and unique playing style give them a strong advantage.
In badminton, a left-handed combination is rare and considered unique. When playing against right-handed opponents, the variations in our shots are very different and can be quite powerful.
The South Korean badminton team, aiming for at least 2 gold medals, will begin their matches on the 27th. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
As today's Chungbok, the hottest day of the year, the heat is incredible. With the first heatwave warning issued in Seoul this year, Chungbok heat is rampant nationwide. Tomorrow, the scorching heat will continue and daily highs will rise to 34 degrees Celsius, similar to today's. In addition, heat of 33 degrees or higher is expected across the country. The effects of Typhoon Kemi will cause rain on Jeju Island and the southern coast. On Jeju Island, where rain has already begun, up to 300 millimeters is expected in the mountainous areas until Saturday. Up to 120 millimeters is on the southern coast from tomorrow. Tomorrow's Seoul, Gwangju, and Jeju will start off at 27 degrees. Highs will move up to 33 in Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Daegu. Next week, there will be rain forecast for the Seoul metropolitan area and western Gangwon-do province. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thanks for watching. A panel session coming up.